This story will tell the life changes of a young man named Suzuki Ryoto, who is an acute introvert, a timid college student. Every day, Ryoto tries to act normal when interacting with his friends. He puts on a fake smile, trying his best to blend into a group of outgoing students despite cruel teasing about his virginity. One day, Ryoto attended a drinking party. As usual, Ryoto had difficulty mingling and joining in the conversation. What he did felt wrong. At the drinking party, Ryoto met a beautiful girl who was quite popular among his friends. The girl's name was Cocoa-chan. Cocoa-chan wanted to ask Ryoto for help to pretend to be Cocoa-chan's boyfriend for the girl's safety reasons. Ryoto agreed. He started to pretend to be Cocoa-chan's boyfriend to ward off the stalker who was harassing Cocoa-chan. That was the beginning of their love story. That tender love was the beginning of a tragedy. Ryoto wanted to live by the sea, peaceful with the view of the sea every day and the refreshing breeze of the beach. He and his girlfriend would walk along the beach in the morning, and at night they would be treated to a view of the starry sky together. Ryoto wanted a peaceful life with his girlfriend, where no one would know them. A safe and peaceful life until death do them part. That was the thought and dream that Ryoto wanted to realize as the young man was now dismembering something that looked like a human body in a narrow space. Ryoto was determined to make his dream come true. What he thought had to be made a reality, even though for that moment their lives were as torturous as hell. At the same time, his girlfriend was watching television in a dark room. The TV broadcast showed a news story about the discovery of a dismembered human body of a man identified as around 20 years old. The case had become a very heinous crime. Start to flashback. Ryoto's story begins when he decides to attend a drinking party held by a friend from his college major. At the event, Ryoto's gaze keeps falling on a beautiful girl sitting at the table across from him. He even subconsciously ignores his friend's calls. His friend's name is Arita, a figure who always loves to share his stories with everyone, and everyone has to hear his stories. This time, Arita is talking about the size of his girlfriend's assets. They compare each other, but the highest throne goes to the girl across the table who has caught Ryoto's attention from the start. That girl is Cocoa-chan. Cocoa-chan seems to hear a little and escapes to the restroom. The conversation continued. Arita felt a strong urge to touch the asset. The others agreed, even Ryoto. Ryoto merely joined the conversation without any further intention. He himself had never experienced falling in love. Ryoto himself was honestly confused about how he should respond to the direction of his friend's conversation in that situation. Ryoto had also recently participated in a group event like that while in college. In high school, Ryoto's appearance was very nerdy. Ryoto had just debuted when he entered college. An atmosphere filled with such vulgar talk was not something Ryoto could handle. Still, Ryoto had to blend in. He didn't want his nerdy identity to be known by his friends. The young man didn't want to risk being shunned. Ryoto began to panic in his mind. He had to immediately respond to his friend's story, but when he spoke, he made a wrong move. Ryoto chose the wrong words in responding to his friend's conversation, and now Ryoto's image was dropping in the eyes of his friends. Arita revealed that Ryoto's words had disgusted him, followed by his other friends. They then mocked him and even mentioned Ryoto, who had never had a girlfriend. Ryoto denied it and lied that he had one girlfriend in high school. Arita half believed and didn't care, but he was sure Ryoto was still a virgin. These words were quite cruel and could hurt the self-esteem of young people. Even Ryoto could only smile awkwardly in response while holding back his increasingly low self-esteem. Ryoto became the butt of jokes in his group. Finally, when his feelings could no longer be contained, Ryoto chose to excuse himself to the toilet for a moment. On his way, he thought about how to mingle when he returned. When he arrived in front of the toilet, he saw Cocoa-chan there. From the beginning, Cocoa-chan was indeed a cute and beautiful girl, but Ryoto was even more fascinated when he saw her up close. Cocoa-chan looked even more adorable when seen up close. Their eyes met for a moment, but Cocoa-chan returned to focusing on her phone. Feeling like he was bothering Cocoa-chan, Ryoto immediately went to the toilet and then returned to his desk. The cycle repeated itself. He was again tired of the topics of conversation with his friends. Once again, Ryoto excused himself to go to the toilet. And once again, Ryoto met Cocoa-chan. This time, Cocoa-chan was the one who greeted Ryoto first. Ryoto tried to make small talk with Cocoa-chan about their frequent encounters in the bathroom due to excessive drinking. but she honestly stated that she wasn't there to use the restroom, but rather to escape from a group conversation. Ryota was quite surprised by what Cocoa-chan said. She even added that she was bad at socializing and disliked drinking parties. This was an unexpected fact for Ryota, as he had thought Cocoa-chan was one of his party-going friends. Cocoa-chan then realized that she had unintentionally delayed Ryota for too long. She apologized for preventing him from going to the restroom, but honestly, the restroom wasn't her goal either. Ryota awkwardly explained that he had left his table to take a short break. The two seemed to get along quite well, both finding the lively atmosphere tiring. Ryota himself was unhappy with the fast-paced conversation and the topics at his table, which focused primarily on vulgar jokes, making it difficult for him to follow the conversation. Ryota himself stated that he wasn't a good speaker, and many people thought he was a gloomy person with a plain face. Most people who heard him, according to Ryota, would definitely find him disgusting, because the young man was shocked when he heard Cocoa-chan's response. Cocoa-chan honestly said that in her eyes Ryota didn't look like the young man she had just described. According to the girl, Ryota was a fairly stylish young man, unlike herself. Cocoa-chan herself had a feeling of insecurity when it came to choosing the outfit she would wear. The girl was afraid that the clothes she wore would be wrong or look ordinary. Cocoa-chan was a girl who came from a village, so some people called her a country bumpkin or even ugly in that regard. Ryota quickly denied this. He understood how Cocoa-chan felt about it because he himself felt the same. In this case, Ryota began to think that Cocoa-chan looked like him. They even had similar feelings when they first came to college and saw everyone's style, which was so trendy but made them both feel hopeless. Cocoa-chan felt happy to be able to talk to Ryota. Even according to him, Ryota was the only person who was the easiest to talk to that he met in college. Ryota blushed. He thought so too. Cocoa-chan then asked Ryota for contact information. They then exchanged contacts. Ryota felt quite happy when he got Cocoa-chan's contact, but not long after, he and Cocoa-chan were caught red-handed by Arita, who suddenly appeared there. Arita accused Ryota of targeting Cocoa-chan, even though Ryota denied it. Arita was reluctant to believe it. Arita immediately shouted to tell his friends that Ryota was flirting with Cocoa-chan. Once again, Ryota became the topic of conversation among his friends. Instantly, Ryota became the subject of ridicule from his friends, ranging from being called a predator in disguise to being exposed as the young man who was still a virgin in front of everyone. Ryota could only stay silent and was not given a chance to explain. Arata's situation worsened. The young man said that Ryota was no match for Cocoa-chan because of Ryoto's innocence. Ryota remained silent, but his heart ached. The young man still tried to blend in and wanted to tell jokes again to adapt as usual, but nothing came to mind, and even smiling like usual felt suffocating. When Ryota tried to force a natural smile like usual, Cocoa-chan stepped forward to explain by saying that Ryota was not the person he had been described as. Ryota was shocked when Cocoa-chan asked everyone to stop talking badly about Ryota. Since the speaker was a beautiful girl, of course, her words would be listened to. Immediately, the men in the group agreed with Cocoa-chan's words and turned to mock Arita, saying that the young man was really annoying and talked too much. Arita began to panic because he was now cornered. Many of them began to talk. Arita panicked because he was honestly the one who was targeting Cocoa-chan. Finally, Arita became angry. Soon, the drinking party was over. They once again left the matter of organizing the party to Arita. As everyone was about to disperse, Ryoto's gaze was still fixed on Cocoa-chan. Another girl noticed this. She then advised Ryota that it would be better not to get involved with Cocoa-chan. Ryota felt confused because he wanted to thank Cocoa-chan. The girl who advised him then called Cocoa-chan so Ryota could talk. Cocoa-chan then approached the two of them, and Ryota was able to thank the girl for defending him earlier during the drinking party. Cocoa-chan smiled. To her, she had only said what she thought. Cocoa-chan wanted to know if her words bothered Ryota, but it didn't. The effect was the opposite. They almost parted ways due to different destinations, but Cocoa-chan returned and asked Ryota if she could ask him for advice. Ryota agreed. As long as Cocoa-chan could do what Ryota asked, the young man didn't mind. Cocoa-chan, with a heavy feeling, then told him that lately she felt like someone was following her. Cocoa-chan wasn't completely sure if the person following her was a stalker. So up until now, Cocoa-chan still hadn't reported it to the police. Even so, Cocoa-chan was still worried. She wanted to ask for help from Ryuto. Ryuto was quite confused what kind of help the girl actually wanted to ask for. The young man began to think that maybe Cocoa-chan would ask him to catch the person who kept following Cocoa-chan, but that was clearly impossible for Ryuto to do. Cocoa-chan was quite confused about how to convey it, but the help she hoped for from Ryuto was for Ryuto to be willing to pretend to be Cocoa-chan's boyfriend. Ryuto was shocked and confused when he heard it. Not for any particular reason. Cocoa-chan's idea came from what he heard. A stalker will give up if the person they are following is with another person. So in this case, Cocoa-chan wanted Ryuto to pretend like an example walking side by side. Ryuto was a little confused about whether it was really okay to do. But after thinking about it for a while, finally Ryuto agreed. He agreed to pretend to be Cocoa-chan's boyfriend. Cocoa-chan looked happy when she heard the decision. She felt so relieved. After that, Cocoa-chan and Ryuto really parted ways to go home each. Ryuto hopes that Cocoa-chan can continue to smile like the first time they met. From that moment on, Ryuto officially became Cocoa-chan's fake boyfriend. Even though it was just a pretense, Ryuto felt something from it. During lectures, his phone kept getting message notifications from his friends. Cocoa-chan was also in the busy chat group. Next to Ryuto, Arata again invited Ryuto to join the barbecue event with the others. Ryuto was hesitant about whether he was allowed to join. Arata agreed that Ryuto could join the barbecue because he felt bad at the previous drinking party. Arata felt that the atmosphere at that time was ruined by him, so as a form of apology, he wanted to invite Ryuto to join. Ryuto initially wanted to decline the invitation, but Arata forced him to go along, arguing that they were the only two who still didn't have a girlfriend, so the event would be a kind of opportunity for them to find a partner. Hearing this reason made Ryuto even more confused because even though the young man didn't have a girlfriend, for the time being, he had promised to be willing to be a fake boyfriend for Cocoa-chan. But in the end, Ryuto still accepted Arata's invitation and went to the barbecue party. Ryuto just went with the flow. Even some people there didn't expect him to still go after the incident at the previous drinking party. Ryuto again seemed unfamiliar with such an event. Not only himself, seeing his other friends come in such fashionable outfits made Cocoa-chan also look overwhelmed and trembling. Arata called Ryuto for a moment. The young man advised Ryuto to get close to Mai, the girl who was always with Cocoa-chan, and the girl who previously advised Ryuto not to get involved with Cocoa-chan. Arata meant that for his own sake, he wanted to approach Cocoa-chan without any obstacles. Therefore, he handed Mai over to Ryuto. Arata even immediately approached Cocoa-chan after he left Ryuto. From there, Ryuto could realize that his friend liked a sweet girl like Cocoa-chan. Ryuto just realized that the situation would be very dangerous and complicated when people found out that he was Cocoa-chan's fake boyfriend. But after considering it again, it wasn't too important because if one day they were found out, they would only need to explain it. Besides, Ryuto himself had been labeled by his friends as a true single. Ryuto tried to calm himself down and assured himself that everything would be fine. He just needed to act like he normally did. Ryuto acted according to Arata's previous instructions, which were to approach Mai. He chatted a little quietly with Cocoa-chan, who had apparently known Cocoa-chan for a long time. Their conversation died down. Everything seemed quiet until a loud ringing from a cell phone notification startled everyone. The ringing came from Cocoa-chan's phone. Cocoa-chan then quickly excused herself to check her cell phone first. Her friends there seemed quite used to Cocoa-chan's phone ringing. They assumed maybe the notification came from her friends, but Mai had heard that Cocoa-chan's ex-boyfriend was quite dangerous. Whoever was the cause of Cocoa-chan's phone notification, Mai hoped it wasn't from her ex-boyfriend. From this, Ryuto learned that Cocoa-chan had an ex-boyfriend. Mai wasn't just worried about that, but also because a body had been found near Cocoa-chan's residence some time ago. She knew she was probably just worrying too much, but her worries were uncontrollable. Ryuto himself was still thinking about Cocoa-chan's ex-boyfriend. He even muttered something about it unconsciously, causing Mai to stare at him in surprise. The preparation was complete. It was time for them to grill and eat. Cocoa-chan approached Ryuto to hand over the ingredients. The girl also asked about the notes of one of the lectures they attended earlier. Ryuto was able to respond to the conversation naturally and had no intention whatsoever. Cocoa-chan then wanted to borrow the notes from Ryuto, but Arata came to interrupt their conversation. The young man offered to lend his notes and sent them via social media. Seeing that, Ryudo realized that Arata was trying to get close to Kokoa-chan. He also didn't feel affection. Besides, he and Kokoa-chan were just pretend lovers who wouldn't last long. Ryudo stepped back to give the two of them space and chose to eat onions, but he was shocked when he found out the onion he bit was raw. The young man couldn't hold it in and even shed tears. That's when Kokoa-chan realized it. She knew that Ryudo had just bitten a raw onion, which made him cry. Kokoa-chan laughed while saying that Ryudo looked cute. Ryudo was surprised to be called cute. Kokoa-chan prepared her cell phone camera to take a picture of Ryudo. The two joked together without realizing Arata was looking at them with a cynical look. Arata suddenly asked if Ryudo knew when onions would be ripe. The question was asked not out of concern but to mock Ryudo, who had never had a barbecue party. Ryudo was even said to look like a hikikomori. Ryudo could only laugh awkwardly. Seeing that, Kokoa-chan then spoke, saying that she was also a hikikomori. Different from when responding to Ryudo, Arata, when responding to Kokoa-chan, seemed enthusiastic. He wanted to know what Kokoa-chan did as a hikikomori. Kokoa-chan spent a lot of her time reading manga and the like. Arata seemed happy, hoping the manga discussion would be in line with Kokoa-chan. He confidently mentioned his love for mystery genre manga, such as Detective Hemi. When Arata asked Kokoa-chan about the cuteness of the character Hemi-chan, Kokoa-chan could not answer. The girl is more interested in series about subcultures, such as Kamura Nejiru. In this discussion, Ryudo was the excited one. The young man was surprised to find out that Kokoa-chan also liked the series. Ryudo seemed happy to meet someone who also liked the series. The two seemed happy to talk, but Arata showed a sour face looking at them. Arata hissed. Ryudo, realizing his attitude was annoying Arata, tried to get Kokoa-chan to switch to Arata by asking for a series recommendation for Arata. Arata was not enthusiastic. He criticized that manga is only for children. Arata then asked Kokoa-chan for a movie recommendation. The girl suggested a Philip Lynch film, and again Ryudo was more enthusiastic than the others. The friends there realized something while Ryudo was enthusiastically talking and telling stories with Kokoa-chan with great enthusiasm. The fun, unfortunately, only lasted for a moment. Arata started to act annoyingly because he could no longer hold back his anger. With a sarcastic tone, Arata criticized Ryudo's increasingly fast way of talking like a nerd. Ryudo was silent, trying to show the most normal expression so that his secret as a nerd would not be revealed. Arata continued to be annoying. He even told about a nerd in his old high school. Arata said that the nerd in his old high school was very similar, even exactly like Ryudo's behavior just now. Ryudo started to sweat coldly. Arata continued his ramblings, guessing that Ryudo would make his debut by changing his appearance and image when college started. Arata criticized Ryudo's appearance, which sometimes looked so ridiculous. The climax was that they assumed Ryudo had tried desperately to change and adapt so as not to be teased. Arata said that Ryudo was hopeless. There was silence for a moment. Ryudo's day was truly hurt, but the man tried to be strong and carved a laugh even though the result was awkward. Everyone was silent. Only Arata laughed cheerfully because his guess seemed right. Arata also advised Kokoa-chan not to get close to Ryudo because the nerd virus was contagious, he said. Ryudo laughed and said that was true. Kokoa-chan wanted to speak, but her words were cut off. Arata continued to approach Kokoa-chan and asked her to go with him to a Disney movie. Ryudo was not interested in watching their interaction because of the notification ringing from his phone. Ryudo had been added to a noisy chat group discussing Arata's bad habits towards Ryudo just now. His friends tried to cheer Ryudo up. From the joke, Ryudo was able to smile a little happily, but Arata now looked disturbed. Arata didn't like seeing his friends laugh for no reason. He wanted to know why, so he asked directly about what was funny. Yudai was confused about how to respond to Arata's question, so with awkward behavior, he answered honestly that Arata seemed to be targeting Kokoa-chan. Now Arata didn't hide his anger. Yudai asked why Arata was angry. Arata explained that he was the one who hated being laughed at the most. He even wanted to get rid of everyone who laughed at him. The whole table then fell silent and bowed. Ryudo and Kokoa-chan also remained silent. However, Arata targeted Ryudo again. Arata accused Ryudo of laughing at him, too, but since Ryudo didn't do it, Ryudo clearly denied it. However, Arata didn't believe it. Arata laughed and asked, as if insulting, why he had to be laughed at by someone like Ryudo. Arata said Ryudo was overreacting. Ryudo could only bow his head silently and then wanted to apologize, but Kokoa-chan, who had been holding back from the start, now lost control. She told Arata in front of everyone to stop bad-mouthing her lover. Ryudo was immediately shocked, followed by Arata, who was also shocked. Arata asked again to confirm whether Kokoa-chan and Ryudo were dating, but before he could answer his question, everyone there laughed, both happy and in disbelief. Ryudo wanted to explain the truth, but Arata was already furious. Arata was angry because he had never heard that Ryudo had a girlfriend. Ryudo trembled and tried to explain that Kokoa-chan was not his girlfriend. They were just pretending to be in a relationship to protect Kokoa-chan from stalkers. Kokoa-chan confirmed Ryudo's explanation. They were just acting. It turned out to be just an imagination in Ryudo's mind. Ryudo wanted to tell the truth, but he also didn't want Kokoa-chan to get into trouble. Ryudo was confused about what to do. Arata was getting angrier because they were silent and no one answered his question. Finally, Ryudo corrected himself by stating that he was Kokoa-chan's boyfriend. Arata's expression was flat. He seemed silent for a moment, but then laughed. He praised that Ryudo and Kokoa-chan were a perfect couple, but in a sarcastic tone. According to him, Kokoa-chan is a very quiet girl, the type that suits Ryudo. Arata explains in more detail that the type of person who can only smile silly without being able to have their own opinion. Ryudo's existence in a situation is meaningless, and no one cares. On that side, Arata said, is Ryudo's added value to be chosen. Ryudo just laughed awkwardly, but a split second later, Arata's head was wet, splashed with water by Kokoa-chan. Everyone was shocked. Kokoa-chan defended Ryudo, saying that Arata had no right to say that. Ryudo felt like a failure. Seeing Kokoa-chan continue to help him made him feel useless. Arata, who was cornered by Kokoa-chan, did not stay silent. The young man was furious and pushed Kokoa-chan until she fell. Ryudo immediately helped Kokoa-chan to get up and asked Arata to hold her. Arata's anger naturally exploded even more. The young man pulled Ryudo's clothes and blamed him. For Arata, Ryudo should have just kept quiet. Laughing awkwardly as usual was the best Ryudo could do. But Ryudo's mistake this time was that instead of keeping quiet, he went on a date with Kokoa-chan. Ryudo admitted his mistake. He gave in and confirmed Arata's words, but one thing that couldn't be justified was his rude behavior towards a girl. His other friends also agreed with what Ryudo said. In this case, Arata had gone too far. Arata was still unconscious. He clenched his fist and tried to hit Ryudo, who was silent. No one was allowed to oppose him. The fist almost touched Ryudo's face when a man appeared and stabbed Arata from behind. Everyone there was shocked and froze. Arata fell, covered in blood. The man wanted to make sure Kokoa-chan was okay. Ryudo started to get confused. The stabbing man started rambling about why Kokoa-chan didn't answer his messages. The man had contacted Kokoa-chan so often, but none of his messages had been replied to. Everyone was scared and ran away while Ryudo was frozen. Kokoa-chan was taken away by the stabbing man, and the girl could only stay silent. Kokoa-chan tried to ask to be let go. She didn't want to go with that scary man, but the girl's strength was not much. At the same time, Ryudo was still frozen, confused about what to do. If he let the situation be like that, Kokoa-chan would be taken away. However, he himself was also too afraid. His body wouldn't move and only trembled silently. Ryudo knew that he couldn't do anything. He hoped that someone would act to help Kokoa-chan, but the girl seemed so eager for Ryudo to come to save her. Ryudo regained control of his body. He ran and pushed the man from behind. Ryudo managed to knock him down, grabbed the knife used to stab Arata, and then carried Kokoa-chan away. The mysterious man didn't give up. He got back up to grab Kokoa-chan. A chase ensued. Ryudo continued running with Kokoa-chan as fast as he could until the man couldn't catch up, but the distance between them was very close. Ryudo wondered where the nearest police station was. He couldn't find any nearby, so the priority for now was to save Kokoa-chan first. A kitchen knife flew past Ryudo's cheek. The mysterious man apparently still had another knife. Ryudo was momentarily shaken by it, but he had no choice but to get back up and run. If caught, there was a chance the man would kill him. Before he could take a steady step, the mysterious man swung his foot at Ryudo. Ryudo fell instantly along with Kokoa-chan. The man was about to stone him with the kitchen knife, But before he could, as a reflex, a form of self-defense, Ryoto swung the knife he was holding straight at the man's stomach. The man dropped his kitchen knife and fell immediately. The incident was witnessed by Kokoa-chan and many others as well. Ryoto himself was extremely shocked by what he had just done. Ryoto remained silent. His hands trembled as he held the blood-stained knife. He was afraid of finding his victim dead. But then Kokoa-chan grabbed his hand and calmed him down. Kokoa-chan tried to calm him down in the chaotic situation. Ryoto was still worried, of course, because his actions were wrong, even though he had claimed to protect Kokoa-chan. However, the mysterious man who had accidentally been stabbed by Ryoto got up. He tried to cover his wound to prevent the blood from flowing profusely and left. 3 days after the stabbing incident, Ryoto remained in his room, frustrated. His room was a mess. The young man lay weakly on his bed. 3 days had passed, and the man who had run away had not been found. The police should have been searching for him. He had no idea what had happened. Whether Arata was okay or Kokoa-chan was completely unaware of it. Ryoto was no longer willing to think about what might happen to him. Ryoto had previously reported the incident and provided testimony and a chronology of events to the police. The young man continued to cry and apologize in front of the police who interviewed him. Seeing how resigned he was, the police seemed to feel sorry for him and asked him to go home. The rest of the case would be handled by the police. Outside the interrogation room, Ryoto could still hear the police conversation inside. They were still unsure whether Ryoto's actions could be categorized as self-defense. The final decision would ultimately be up to the prosecutor. However, the absence of another person involved in the case would prevent it from being validated. This was because the stab wound was in the stomach. If the stab had been in a non-vital area like the leg, the claim of no murderous intent would have been accepted. This would make it difficult for Ryoto to win the case. Ryoto himself had also done some research online. From what he had gathered, he realized that there were many requirements for self-defense. Therefore, even if the mysterious man were found alive, it was still unclear how his actions would be determined. Ryoto's stabbing of the mysterious man wouldn't necessarily be considered self-defense, but if the mysterious man died, his actions would certainly be ruled as murder. Ryoto was tired. As his eyes were about to close, he couldn't fall asleep because of the flood of notifications on his phone. There were so many impressions and comments on his social media. There was even a special hashtag for the incident involving Ryoto. It was the barbecue party and Arata's stabbing. Many social media users judged the stabbing that day. Ryoto began to be labeled as a murderer. Many cursed him, and this made Ryoto's mental state go down. The young man began to lose the meaning of continuing his life. Ryoto also received messages from Kokoa-chan, but they were always deleted before he could open them. He wanted to know what they meant. He was also quite curious because he hadn't contacted her at all since the day of the incident. Ryoto opened the message but again decided not to contact her. Ryoto felt that if he contacted Kokoa-chan, their recent incident would come up as a topic of discussion. Ryoto chose to stay in bed. He thought again about who the mysterious man really was. Ryoto briefly remembered the man's ranting about how he often entertained Kokoa-chan but never received a response. Ryoto also remembered that Kokoa-chan seemed to receive a series of messages from the many message notifications that came into her phone. The problem notifications seemed to come from one messaging application. If the mysterious man could contact Kokoa-chan, then it was certain that Kokoa-chan and the man knew each other. Indeed, it was not uncommon for acquaintances to turn into stalkers. But there was still one odd thing. In that situation, Kokoa-chan could have taken action by blocking the mysterious man. Ryoto began to wonder what kind of relationship Kokoa-chan and the mysterious man had. Ryoto suddenly remembered Mai's advice back then, saying that it would be best for him not to get close to or involved with Kokoa-chan. Ryoto fell silent. Suddenly, he heard a knock on his door. There was someone at his door. Ryoto was quite surprised. Who it was, no one knew because Ryoto didn't have any package orders that day. Ryoto got up to see the figure across the door. It turned out that the visitor was Kokoa-chan. Not stopping there, Kokoa-chan also contacted him by phone and said that there was something she needed to discuss with Ryoto. Kokoa-chan wanted to be invited inside. Kokoa-chan apologized for her behavior, but she had also thought about it beforehand. Because Ryoto hadn't replied to her message, Kokoa-chan felt worried and ended up going straight to Ryoto's house. Ryota was silent and finally opened the door a little. He spoke from behind the door while slightly revealing himself. Ryota admitted that he wasn't feeling well at that time. Kokoa-chan seemed to feel unwell. She also didn't want to bother a sick person for too long. Ryota then asked why Kokoa-chan had come. Kokoa-chan replied that she was just worried. Her worry made Kokoa-chan brave enough to ask Yudai for Ryoto's address, and she finally went to visit Ryoto at that time. Kokoa-chan wanted to know if she had disturbed Ryoto. The young man spontaneously answered no, but then was confused for a moment. There was something Ryoto wanted to ask. After thinking for a long time, Ryoto finally chose to ask about Kokoa-chan, who knew the mysterious man who stabbed Arata. Kokoa-chan paused for a moment, then asked Ryoto why he asked. The girl then denied that she knew the mysterious man. In fact, she didn't know him at all. With that answer, Ryoto felt awkward. He had no reason to ask except his curiosity. Ryoto had also heard the mysterious man's ramblings, who said he had sent a message to Kokoa-chan but didn't get a reply. Kokoa-chan fell silent again for a moment. She denied knowing the mysterious man, but she also admitted that she only received annoying messages. From there, Ryoto could only understand and assume that the man was her stalker. Kokoa-chan wanted to ask if there was something that had made Ryoto feel curious. Ryoto was reluctant to answer honestly, so he only reasoned that his question just now might also be due to the influence of him not feeling well, which made him say something strange. Kokoa-chan spoke. She told Ryoto that after the incident at the barbecue party, Kokoa-chan never blamed Ryoto for the incident. Ryoto fell silent, remembering everything that had happened. Kokoa-chan thanked the young man for protecting and saving her. If Ryoto hadn't acted that way, Kokoa-chan herself wouldn't have been able to believe she would still be alive. Kokoa-chan felt deeply indebted to Ryoto, so she thanked him once again. Ryoto was stunned to find the image in his mind of the mysterious man lying on the ground after being stabbed. Ryoto could only respond to Kokoa-chan perfunctorily. Seeing the situation, Kokoa-chan was quite aware that Ryoto looked like he was facing a problem. The girl tried to offer herself to help him. She even said that she would always be by Ryoto's side. Hearing this made Ryoto not happy, but self-conscious. There was nothing Kokoa-chan could do for him, and there was also nothing he could do anymore. Kokoa-chan disagreed with what Ryoto said because for her, the wrong one was the mysterious man who suddenly appeared and stabbed people. Besides, even though Ryoto's actions were also stabbing people, for Kokoa-chan, it could not be blamed because in the situation at that time, Ryoto was only trying to defend himself. Kokoa-chan insisted that Ryoto was not guilty. The girl was sure that Ryoto would be fine, but the memories that appeared in Ryoto's mind when he heard the investigator's conversation made his feelings even more cornered. Ryoto finally vented his anger without being able to control it. He shouted at Kokoa-chan that he couldn't do that anymore and that she shouldn't say something carelessly. Kokoa-chan was stunned to hear Ryoto shout at her. The girl lowered her head silently and apologized to Ryoto again for everything that was actually her fault. The whole bad situation started when Kokoa-chan asked Ryoto to be her fake boyfriend, and that beginning eventually led them to a messy situation. Once again, Kokoa-chan sincerely apologized to Ryoto. Seeing the girl blame herself made Ryoto feel that it was wrong. Because of her considerable guilt, Kokoa-chan finally said that from now on she would not bother Ryoto anymore. Ryoto no longer needed to pretend to be Kokoa-chan's boyfriend. The last words Kokoa-chan could say were just an expression of gratitude and an apology. Ryoto just stared silently without answering a single word from Kokoa-chan. Before actually leaving the place, Kokoa-chan wanted to give some cabbage rolls that she had made for Ryoto. After giving it, Kokoa-chan then said goodbye and left the place. Ryoto looked confused. He felt that Kokoa-chan was not wrong at all. In fact, maybe all this time, the girl must have been more afraid than Ryoto at this time. But Ryoto instead vented his feelings of anger and fear in front of Kokoa-chan. Ryoto could clearly remember Kokoa-chan's face, which looked almost crying earlier. Ryoto rushed to open the door to catch up with Kokoa-chan before she went too far. Ryoto wanted to apologize to the girl, but when he called her name and Kokoa-chan turned around spontaneously, from behind the girl came the mysterious man who went straight to Ryoto. The mysterious man immediately lunged at Ryoto until he fell into his apartment. Ryoto was still shocked. How the man could be there, and what for was still a big question for him. The mysterious man seemed furious with Ryoto. Ryota was beaten and beaten badly by him. Cocoa-chan tried to stop him. When talking to Cocoa-chan, the mysterious man seemed to try to restrain himself and looked gentler. He didn't want Cocoa-chan to worry. Ryota, who saw an opening when the man was off guard, then clenched his fist to hit the part where the man had been stabbed by him, so that for a while, Ryota could get away from the man. The man fell, and Ryota tried to get away from him. Cocoa-chan approached Ryota because she was worried, but this made the mysterious man even angrier. He wanted Cocoa-chan to get away from Ryoto's side, but instead of complying, the girl threatened to report him to the police. The man was confused. Why did Cocoa-chan have to call the police? The question made Cocoa-chan and Ryota look confused and surprised. Cocoa-chan again threatened the man that if he didn't leave the place immediately, then she would really call the police to report him. The man was surprised and wondered why Cocoa-chan said that to him. He then asked why Cocoa-chan preferred to be by someone as unimportant as Ryoto's side rather than being by his side. According to him, Cocoa-chan should be with him because he could guarantee that the girl would be much happier when she was with him. Cocoa-chan didn't want to hear it. She remained firm in her desire to kick the mysterious man out of Ryoto's apartment. Cocoa-chan shouted at the mysterious man to get out, but all she got for her actions was a hard punch aimed directly at her face. The mysterious man was furious at Cocoa-chan, who didn't take his side at all. Even though he had done his best just for Cocoa-chan, Cocoa-chan was curled up in pain, trying to be helped by Ryota, who was still confused there. The mysterious man was stunned when he saw the strength, not feeling much pain. He was silent with guilt piling up in his mind. The man then took a knife from its place in Ryoto's kitchen. Ryota was wide-eyed when he saw the man again, holding a sharp knife in his hand. The mysterious man seemed desperate. He began to believe that the best thing he could do was disappear. Hearing the man's muttering, Ryota and Cocoa-chan fell silent in disbelief. The mysterious man cried and began to resign himself to his life. His actions were known to the public, and even the reason he did this was because Cocoa-chan also hated him. For him, in his life at that time, Cocoa-chan was the only one he had. Therefore, the mysterious man's final decision was to ask Cocoa-chan with a scary smile on his face and tears flowing profusely. The mysterious man asked to invite Cocoa-chan to die with him. Ryota and Cocoa-chan were silent in confusion. A moment later, the mysterious trio knocked Ryota down with a kick, distracting Cocoa-chan for a moment. The man promised not to make Cocoa-chan's death painful. Cocoa-chan was smothered by the mysterious man's palm. Ryota once again wanted to help and save Cocoa-chan, but the mysterious man immediately pointed the sharp kitchen knife at Ryoto's face while threatening to kill Ryota if the young man continued to try to disturb and hinder him. Because of this threat, Ryota froze again. The mysterious man returned his focus to Cocoa-chan and began to place the sharp kitchen knife on the girl's neck. The man promised that the process would be completed in a short time. The look on Cocoa-chan's frightened face, which was covered in tears, made Ryota immediately think quickly to act. Ryota grabbed the handle of the frying pan while the mysterious man was still focused on Cocoa-chan. Cocoa-chan could see what Ryota was about to do. As the kitchen knife got closer to her face, Cocoa-chan looked increasingly frightened, and Ryota became more determined. He knew he had to do it, and that thought kept running through Ryoto's mind. With all his strength, Ryota swung the frying pan straight at the mysterious man's head. Ryota slammed his frying pan with all his might into the mysterious man. He fell to the ground, paralyzed. He turned to Cocoa-chan to ask how she was, trembling with fear. Cocoa-chan and Ryota were fine, but the mysterious man wasn't. Ryota realized the situation was getting worse. The man didn't seem to be getting better. He asked Cocoa-chan to leave. Ryoto's mind was in disarray. If he really killed that man, then his life this time would really be over. But even so, Ryota didn't care. After all, for him, no one cared. The young man began to point the knife he was holding at his own neck. Cocoa-chan, who saw it, was increasingly worried and confused. What exactly was Ryota doing? It looked very dangerous. But Ryota didn't care anymore. He just wanted Cocoa-chan to get out of there immediately. Cocoa-chan wanted to stop Ryota. Ryota smiled, asking her not to worry because Ryota was just a trash human. During his school days, Ryota was a poor student in both academics and sports. He had no talents, making him unpopular among his peers. He also appeared gloomy and boring, so no one was willing to approach him or befriend him. Ryoto had tried to change himself, but his efforts were unsuccessful. He continued to fail. At this point, even his parents had given up on him. He considered himself a nuisance to everyone. Ryoto wanted to be like ordinary people with a peaceful and harmonious life with others, but the more he tried, the more convinced he was that he couldn't. His efforts were truly unsuccessful. Even now, at the peak of all his failures, Ryoto only had one success, which was the biggest failure. That was killing the mysterious man. Ryoto was now truly disgusted with himself. Ryoto lost his confidence to be able to live in society in an environment like before. Finally, he apologized to Kokoa-chan for all his nagging. He also apologized for the mistakes and problems he had caused. The only thing that still made him feel happy and could carve a smile was that he managed to protect Kokoa-chan. Kokoa-chan's eyes widened in realization. Ryoto continued his words, thanking her for being willing to be his friend. Ryoto finished his farewell and began swinging the knife as hard as he could at his own neck, but it didn't hurt him. Kokoa-chan was still faster. The back of her hand blocked the sharp blade from piercing Ryoto's skin. As a result, the girl was the one who was injured, preventing Ryoto from eliminating himself. She didn't want Ryoto to die. Kokoa-chan invited Ryoto to live with her. The knife fell. Kokoa-chan immediately hugged Ryoto. She said that she was just like Ryoto, just a pile of human trash. Kokoa-chan admitted that she understood very well how Ryoto felt, who now wanted to eliminate himself. But even so, Kokoa-chan didn't want Ryoto to go. She didn't want to be left alone by Ryoto. Hearing those words made her heart ache. Ryoto cried in Kokoa-chan's arms. The young man felt warmth in the girl's embrace. For him, being hugged by someone gave such an extraordinary feeling. Ryoto felt like he was being hugged by a goddess, Kokoa-chan. For a moment, Ryoto felt like he'd been forgiven. He thought maybe it was okay for him to live this way. Even if he couldn't choose the right path, and even if his life seemed like hell. Now the two of them had to figure out how to handle the mysterious man who lay helpless, possibly lifeless. Kokoa-chan was at a loss for what to do, while Ryoto was overthinking things. He realized that this time he had attacked the man with murderous intent. Therefore, he was certain he would be punished. After taking a deep breath, Ryoto reassured Kokoa-chan and said that he would take care of the man. Ryoto began wrapping the man up, covering him in such a way that it looked like a large package. Ryoto realized that his life was over, but Kokoa-chan begged him to stay alive. Therefore, Ryoto was determined to live as he wanted at least until he was caught, even if it was only for a short time. Ryoto took the mysterious man's package and put it in the trunk of the car. Ryoto drove with Kokoa-chan sitting in the passenger seat. Seeing Kokoa-chan continue to accompany him made Ryoto have thoughts of stealing the girl's first kiss, but he pushed the thought away. Ryoto focused on driving, while Kokoa-chan focused on her phone. No one realized that the man in the trunk was still moving, showing signs of life. When they had gotten far enough, they were about to drop off the mysterious man. However, as soon as the trunk was opened, the man immediately ambushed Kokoa-chan. The man almost got Kokoa-chan, but Ryoto was able to overcome him. The young man dragged the mysterious man while carrying a shovel. The man continued to shout Kokoa-chan's name, while the girl was just frozen. Ryoto continued to drag him until he reached a slightly open area. Ryoto raised his shovel, but the mysterious man begged him not to kill him. Ryoto was silent for a moment. He then asked if he spared the man's life. Could the mysterious man stop approaching Kokoa-chan? The man was silent and looked down for a moment. Ryoto began to think that maybe he could leave the man alive there. The man was indeed dangerous, but now he seemed weak. If only the mysterious man had learned from his experience, maybe there would still be a chance. Ryoto thought, but his eyes caught the mysterious man's hand trying to reach for a rock. His thoughts of forgiveness were instantly dashed. The man had no hope left. Ryoto beat the man to death with his shovel. The shovel that was originally clean was now covered in blood. That place was now the mysterious man's final resting place, and the place of Ryoto's death. However, that place was also the point where Ryoto was reborn. For Kokoa-chan, Ryoto had thrown away his former weak self, and from that moment on, he was determined to become who he wanted to be. Kokoa-chan waited quietly in the car for Ryoto, and soon the young man arrived with some money. He had finished burying the mysterious man. Just as he was about to get into the car, Ryoto asked Kokoa-chan if he could call her by her first name. Kokoa-chan was silent for a moment, but then agreed. With a sweet smile, Kokoa-chan even started calling Ryudo by his first name. Ryudo felt quite surprised, as it was the first time someone had called him by his first name. Kokoa-chan was quite surprised because she thought Ryudo's first name was quite cool. It suited Ryudo very well. Hearing the compliment made Ryudo blush. Kokoa-chan was already feeling tired. She invited Ryudo to have fun. Ryudo didn't refuse, but he was confused about where they should have fun. Kokoa-chan suggested going to Disneyland. That was Kokoa-chan's wish. She had promised to go with her friends, but now she couldn't because none of her friends could. According to Kokoa-chan, Disneyland might be a good place to have fun, even though she herself had never been to Disneyland. Ryudo then agreed to go to Disneyland with Kokoa-chan soon. Kokoa-chan was delighted that her wish seemed to be coming true. Ryudo planned to use the money he had earned to have fun with Kokoa-chan. It was also Ryudo's first time at Disneyland, and he was quite excited to go with Kokoa-chan. On the way, while focusing on driving, Ryudo thought about how much fun he would have going to Disneyland with Kokoa-chan. He never thought it could happen. When he realized they looked like they were on a date, Ryudo became even more nervous. When they arrived at Disneyland, the weather suddenly started pouring with rain. Kokoa-chan was still enthusiastic, while Ryudo was a little gloomy. Feeling like he might be a rain man, Kokoa-chan tried to cheer Ryudo up. Even though they arrived in the rain, there were still many rides they could enjoy together. Kokoa-chan started asking what kind of rides Ryudo wanted to try. Ryudo was confused about deciding, so in the end, he chose to just go wherever and whatever ride Kokoa-chan wanted to try. Kokoa-chan was very happy to hear that. She was enthusiastic. The ride she really wanted to try was an adrenaline ride that would make them scream a lot. Hearing that, Ryudo slightly regretted his decision to give in to Kokoa-chan's choice. Ryudo couldn't be honest. With his fake smile, he pretended to be happy and enthusiastic about the ride they were about to take. Kokoa-chan was quite surprised by Ryudo's response. The first ride they chose was the spinning cup ride. Kokoa-chan looked enthusiastic and thought it was very fun. Ryudo immediately agreed. They went to where the spinning cup ride was. Kokoa-chan offered to be the spinner. Kokoa-chan was enthusiastic, while Ryudo was a little apprehensive. If Kokoa-chan spun the cup as hard as she could, as fast as she could, it was certain that Ryudo, who was afraid of adrenaline rides, would be found out. And sure enough, the moment Kokoa-chan spun the ride, Ryudo was carried away and looked like he was about to fall. When he finished and got off the ride, Ryudo looked a little drunk. Kokoa-chan felt guilty, thinking she had spun the ride too fast. The girl immediately went to take responsibility and buy Ryudo something as compensation. Ryudo had tried to stop Kokoa-chan, but the girl was already far away. When she returned, Kokoa-chan brought 2 churros for them. Ryudo tasted them and felt that what he had just eaten was quite delicious. Kokoa-chan felt quite relieved knowing that Ryudo liked the churros she bought. The girl was enthusiastic again for the next ride. They were going to the bear place because Kokoa-chan was interested in the princess. Ryudo realized it was for his sake. Ryudo was impressed by Kokoa-chan's attention, but also a little annoyed because he felt he should be the one paying attention. It didn't stop there. Kokoa-chan took the initiative to make Ryudo taste her churros, which tasted different from Ryudo's. Ryudo was surprised. He felt bad and chose to reject Kokoa-chan's suggestion, saying he preferred the original flavor. Kokoa-chan could only remain silent because the proposal was rejected. Her face looked a little disappointed, and Ryudo saw that. Ryudo wondered if Kokoa-chan felt happy when he was with him. He was still stuck with the label people had attached to him as a gloomy and annoying figure. But Kokoa-chan was still willing to call Ryudo by his first name. He thought that might be annoying for her. Thinking about it, Ryudo looked pensive for a moment. Even Kokoa-chan had to call him several times to get him back to his senses. When he realized Kokoa-chan was calling him, Ryudo also overheard the surrounding gossip about the still uncaught killer. They were talking about a serial murder case where the perpetrator was still on the run and had not been caught. The 2 people talking seemed to recognize Ryudo, and that caused Ryudo to have a panic attack. Kokoa-chan was there and calmed him down. Kokoa-chan took him away and continued having fun to forget everything. Ryudo could forget everything he hated and tell Kokoa-chan if one day he felt uncomfortable. Hearing that sentence made Ryudo feel happy. His face was red because he was embarrassed. It was the first time he could meet a girl as good as Kokoa-chan, even though Ryoto thought he was very annoying, but still, the girl was nice to him. Ryoto wanted to know if he would still be forgiven by Kokoa-chan if he fell in love with Kokoa-chan, without realizing there was someone else watching them. Kokoa-chan and Ryoto took a break after going around, trying out many rides. Kokoa-chan asked if Ryoto was going home that day, but Ryoto refused to go home. He wanted to continue exploring the adrenaline rides with Kokoa-chan. Kokoa-chan was quite surprised to hear this, but responded with a sweet smile while joking a little with Ryoto. A handsome young man suddenly came to them, saying he wanted to join them. Ryoto and Kokoa-chan were silent. Ryoto didn't know the young man, but the young man seemed to know Kokoa-chan. Kokoa-chan looked confused. Only when the man reminded Kokoa-chan that he was a Kisaragi did Kokoa-chan remember. The girl seemed to have forgotten about the handsome young man named Kisaragi. Kisaragi then greeted Ryoto. Ryoto, still on the run, claimed to be Tanaka, but Kisaragi knew Tanaka wasn't Ryoto's name. He had seen Ryoto on social media and recognized him as Suzuki Ryoto. Kisaragi deliberately said in front of Ryoto that Ryoto had stabbed someone. He was sure, even though the photo he saw didn't show a clear face. According to Kisaragi, it was dangerous for Ryoto to come to Disneyland. Even if it was Kisaragi, he was sure he wouldn't be able to do the same thing as Ryoto. Kisaragi truly appreciated Ryoto's courage, which he thought was extraordinary. Honestly, Ryoto was very surprised when Kisaragi said that even his throat felt choked. Kisaragi didn't care and was more interested in asking why Kokoa-chan, who had refused his appointment, went to Disneyland with someone like Ryoto. Kisaragi displayed an annoyed facial expression, but his interlocutor, Kokoa-chan, looked like a confused girl and didn't know what Kisaragi was talking about. Ryoto himself was also surprised by Kisaragi's words just now. Kokoa-chan's answer was simple. Just a piece of sorry that was said with a little stuttering to answer Kisaragi's question. Of course, Kisaragi would feel annoyed. Of the many options, the reason why he had to say sorry was simple. The handsome young man wanted Kokoa-chan to at least follow his conversation properly. He knew the girl wasn't as stupid as she appeared. Kokoa-chan just kept quiet while Ryoto overthought about what promise was meant and why Kisaragi was acting like that. Kisaragi continued his conversation. He felt annoyed because he had previously prepared everything for his appointment with Kokoa-chan. However, Kokoa-chan refused him because she wasn't feeling well. The reason was initially understandable, but that feeling of understanding fell away when he saw Kokoa-chan having fun at Disneyland with another man. Kisaragi became annoyed that his efforts were in vain and even went with another woman when he really wanted to go with Kokoa-chan. That girl had really disappointed Kisaragi. Kokoa-chan didn't deny it. She confirmed everything Kisaragi had said and then added a simple apology. Kisaragi was getting more and more fed up with his difficulty in understanding women. He advised Kokoa-chan to never underestimate others because if that was done, people would slowly hate him for the rest of his life. Even that day, if Kisaragi hadn't lied to him, he was sure Kokoa-chan would have been hit. That girl was really annoying. Ryoto interrupted, saying that Kisaragi had talked too much. Kisaragi confirmed it. Maybe she had talked too much, according to what Ryoto said. It might have happened because Kisaragi was quite emotional because she hadn't seen Kokoa-chan for a long time. Kisaragi wanted to take a win-win solution. He said he would forgive Kokoa-chan if the girl would go out to eat with him. Ryoto was silent, and Kokoa-chan was also still silent. Kokoa-chan was reluctant to answer, even though Kisaragi had tried to convince her. He even recommended a good restaurant that he knew, but Kokoa-chan still left the answer hanging, as if politely refusing. Ryoto was confused. What was really going on with those two people? What was their relationship really like? He couldn't understand it. Kisaragi was still babbling, trying to get Kokoa-chan to go with him. Accidentally, he saw the wound on Kokoa-chan's hand and wanted to check it. Before he could reach for Kokoa-chan's hand, Ryoto stopped Kisaragi. Kisaragi was angry with Ryoto's actions. Ryoto said that he stopped Kisaragi because Kokoa-chan was injured there. Kisaragi was getting fed up. Who exactly was Ryoto, who kept bothering him with Kokoa-chan? He wanted to know whether their relationship was really just friends or more. Kokoa-chan and Ryoto looked at each other for a moment. Then Ryoto answered that he was Kokoa-chan's boyfriend. Kisaragi was stunned for a moment. Then his expression darkened, as if holding back anger. Kisaragi then pulled down the mask covering Ryoto's face. He argued that Kokoa-chan really liked cool guys, like Kisaragi had handled before. Kokoa-chan just kept quiet when Kisaragi said that. Ryota was annoyed. What exactly had Kisaragi just done, and who was Kisaragi to Kokoa-chan? Kisaragi admitted that they were very close friends. Unlike Kokoa-chan, who only admitted that they were friends at the same prep school, nothing more. Kisaragi confirmed this and even added that he was a pretty smart student, so Kokoa-chan often got help studying from him. Kokoa-chan had a little bit of an opinion that Kisaragi from before and now was very different. Kisaragi had changed a lot. This was confirmed by Kisaragi, who in fact really tried to change his image, but what Kokoa-chan meant was change not in that aspect. Before the girl could finish her sentence, Kisaragi immediately excused himself and left them. Kisaragi felt bad for disturbing Kokoa-chan and Ryota. He said goodbye, especially to Ryota, and wished him success. Ryota was wary. He was confused by Kisaragi's very unfriendly attitude. Like Ryota, Kokoa-chan, who now had a lethargic expression, also wondered why Kisaragi was acting like that. Ryota noticed the change in Kokoa-chan's expression immediately, so to cheer her up, he asked which ride they would like to try next. Ryota let Kokoa-chan choose her ride. Kokoa-chan chose Splash Mountain, one of the adrenaline rides that was quite scary. Kokoa-chan asked Ryota if it was okay for him. Ryota just smiled and led the way, asking Kokoa-chan not to think about it. Kokoa-chan just smiled. From that, Ryota realized that it wasn't just him who had gone through a lot of hard things. Kokoa-chan had too. That was why he was determined to enjoy moments like this with Kokoa-chan as much as possible. Night fell, and they concluded their time at Disneyland by watching the Princess and Prince show. Kokoa-chan thanked Ryota for his understanding, and Ryota was happy about it. They then returned home. They both enjoyed the fun. Kokoa-chan didn't even want to go home yet. She wanted to enjoy the sea rides, and so did Ryota. She then asked Ryota to go again the next day. Ryota agreed, but they both needed to rest for a while. To rest, Ryota thought a little harder. It would be risky for him to go home right then. For Ryota himself, maybe he could stay at an internet cafe, so at least he had to take Kokoa-chan home first. Then he would pick her up again tomorrow. That was the plan he had thought of, but suddenly his thoughts were interrupted when he saw the luxurious hotel building standing majestically before him. Ryota felt hesitant, but he wanted to try. Kokoa-chan, who saw the change in Ryoto's expression, was quite surprised and confused until she looked towards the hotel in front of them. Kokoa-chan had heard that the rooms in the hotel were very cute with delicious food service. Hearing that, Ryota became even more hesitant. He was still taboo about men and women going to hotels alone, but on the other hand, they were also very tired, and if they went there, the distance would not be far. Ryota also realized that he was not the type of man who was a jerk. Ryota glanced at Kokoa-chan for a moment. He then decided to ask her if they could stay at the hotel. Kokoa-chan looked down for a moment, thinking. She then looked at Ryota with a blushing face and pulled him by the arm, leading him to the hotel. Kokoa-chan agreed to stay there. They ended up booking a room at the hotel with twin beds. Just as Kokoa-chan had heard, the room was indeed very cute and luxurious. She immediately lay down on the bed and felt how soft the mattress was. Ryota also seemed amazed by the appearance of the room he had booked. The young man immediately checked the refrigerator and found it fully stocked with various drinks. Kokoa-chan lay down. The girl asked teasingly if Ryota really wouldn't drink. If Ryota drank, maybe there would be a chance for him. Who knows what opportunity Kokoa-chan was referring to in this case. Ryota remained firm in his principles. That shouldn't be done. It's not good because they are still minors. Besides, they also have to leave immediately tomorrow morning. The main and better thing to do is rest. Ryota lay down on the bed and felt how comfortable the hotel bed was. For the rest of the day, they decided to rest as much as they wanted and go to the Mediterranean the next day. They slept in separate beds but facing each other. Ryota was quite blushing while Kokoa-chan asked if the young man enjoyed the day as much as he did. Of course, the answer was yes. Ryota felt very happy thanks to Kokoa-chan. They would continue their fun tomorrow as much as they wanted. Hearing that, Ryota wished that time could stop for that moment. Kokoa-chan, who heard Ryoto's hope, fell silent. She got out of bed and moved to Ryoto's bed. Ryota was stunned, shocked, and froze. The young man's reaction immediately averted his gaze. This made Kokoa-chan feel that Ryota was truly a very adorable and very kind figure. Ryota was not sure. All she understood from him was that he was just a boring, introverted young man. Kokoa-chan denied Ryoto's words, especially because the young man had helped her many times, and it was true. The two were silent for a moment, but then Kokoa-chan expressed hope that the young man would never change. These words moved Ryoto's heart. Reflexively, his hand touched Kokoa-chan's head. Kokoa-chan was surprised. Ryoto was even more surprised and immediately removed his own hand. He apologized for his sudden behavior. Both of them woke up with blushing faces. Kokoa-chan took the initiative to take a shower first, and Ryoto let her. While Kokoa-chan was showering, Ryoto went out to read manga at a nearby convenience store. The young man was again overthinking about what he had just done unknowingly to Kokoa-chan. He was worried that Kokoa-chan would hate him. However, the expression Kokoa-chan showed when Ryoto raised his hand looked like disappointment or maybe sadness. While thinking, Ryoto was surprised by someone who accidentally nudged him and then just left. He didn't suspect anything and continued his reading activity. In her room, Kokoa-chan had finished showering and was drying her hair. She was also thinking about Ryoto, who had unconsciously touched her head. She was then startled by the sound of the door opening. Kokoa-chan welcomed Ryoto, but unfortunately, it was Kisaragi who appeared. With a dagger behind his back, Kisaragi invited Kokoa-chan to have some fun. Kokoa-chan was confused as to how Kisaragi was there. Kisaragi cheerfully replied that he could get in because he had taken the hotel room key from Ryoto. Kisaragi called Ryoto a stupid idiot with a disgusting bad character because he saw him reading manga and smiling like a madman. Kokoa-chan didn't want to hear that. She just wanted to know what Kisaragi wanted. Kisaragi then said honestly and clearly that his wish was for Kokoa-chan to be his only. Kisaragi wanted Kokoa-chan to be his girlfriend. The girl looked confused and felt like she couldn't because she already had Ryoto, but Kisaragi didn't care. That was the second time Kisaragi had confessed his love to Kokoa-chan. Kisaragi feels that he has everything to be able to be Kokoa-chan's lover. Starting from his sharp nose like a carving, his slender and sharp jaw, a face that will make anyone turn around and even turn around just to look at him. Besides that, Kisaragi is also rich thanks to the woman who adores him so stupidly. Kisaragi compares himself to Ryoto, who he thinks has nothing, and he is even sure that the man is not Kokoa-chan's real lover. Kisaragi is quite sure of his assumption that Kokoa-chan is just playing with Ryoto, just like Kokoa-chan usually plays with other men. Kokoa-chan doesn't accept it. She said that her face and money are not important. Kisaragi is angry with the statement. Kokoa-chan did say that, but she also can't have a poor and ugly lover. Kisaragi is very sure because that is also the reason Kokoa-chan rejected him before. Kokoa-chan denied the rejection because of Kisaragi's face and money. She said that the reason she rejected Kisaragi before was that they were friends. Kokoa-chan felt bad. She was confused about what was really wrong with Kisaragi. What she remembered was that Kisaragi used to be a kind and even very gentle person. Kisaragi became even more angry hearing Kokoa-chan's words. The change was caused by Kokoa-chan, but Kokoa-chan herself didn't realize it. This time, Kokoa-chan really annoyed her. In Kisaragi's eyes, Kokoa-chan always behaved and acted like a princess with a miserable fate when, in fact, the men were more miserable, and in this case, it was Kisaragi. Kisaragi brought up what had happened after Kokoa-chan rejected him. At that time, after Kisaragi received rejection from Kokoa-chan, everyone at school mocked him and told him that ugly people like him shouldn't have too much hope. Kisaragi was right that he, who always got the best academic performance in his school, had his self-esteem trampled on by many people that day, and he thought it must be a pleasant thing, especially for Kokoa-chan Kisaragi, who used to be a very sensitive person. So after that incident, the young man chose to lock himself in his room because he felt that his world had been destroyed that day. It was the opposite with Kokoa-chan. Even after the rejection incident, Kokoa-chan was still liked by many people. Even though the girl was a pretty stupid student, because of her beautiful face, no one hated her. In this case, Kisaragi was the only one who was hurt. Kisaragi felt he had been unjustly treated. He wished he could kill everyone who looked down on him, but unfortunately he couldn't. Kokoa-chan wanted to make excuses, but Kisaragi stopped him. Kisaragi said honestly that the only reason why so many people liked Kokoa-chan was because of her looks and body. In this case, only Kisaragi felt different. The young man said that he didn't care about Kokoa-chan's appearance. No matter what, Even if Kokoa-chan was willing to be his girlfriend, the young man would also ignore everything that had happened to him because of Kokoa-chan. Kisaragi tried to make Kokoa-chan understand that he would accept Kokoa-chan no matter what, even though her ugly side was not a problem for Kisaragi. Kisaragi wouldn't care if the girl rejected him or broke her promise to him, and he wouldn't even mind if Kokoa-chan flirted with other men. He promised to overlook all of that as long as Kokoa-chan was willing to be his. Kisaragi firmly believed that was what true love was. Kokoa-chan rejected that understanding. For her, true love is not like that. Love for Kokoa-chan is when she thinks more about her partner than anything else, even herself. Kokoa-chan cried, saying that. Kisaragi tried to touch her to calm her down, but the girl fended off Kisaragi's hand. Kisaragi was disgusted. He again asked the conclusion whether Kokoa-chan was willing to be his. In between tears, Kokoa-chan said that she did not want to be Kisaragi's. Kisaragi, who was disgusted, did not accept that answer. Whatever Kokoa-chan's choice was, Kisaragi had decided. Kisaragi filled a glass with water and put the medicine in it. He then gave it to Kokoa-chan. The girl was initially reluctant to accept it, but Kisaragi, who had run out of patience, drank the water and then gave it to Kokoa-chan with a kiss. Kokoa-chan had no choice but to accept it. At first she didn't swallow it, but when Kisaragi took out the dagger he had stuck in the wall next to Kokoa-chan's head, the girl only had the choice to swallow the water. This action made Kisaragi excited, while Kokoa-chan looked desperate. There was still water left in the glass. Kisaragi drank it again and gave it to Kokoa-chan with another kiss. The glass was finally empty, and Kokoa-chan also collapsed. The medicine finally worked, so it was time for Kisaragi to leave the room while taking Kokoa-chan with him. Kisaragi promised to give Kokoa-chan something fun. Ryuto had just returned from the convenience store. He was sure Kokoa-chan had finished her shower and was waiting for him. Reaching into his pocket, Ryuto realized he had lost the key to the hotel room he had booked. Ryuto frantically searched for it while Kisaragi happily carried an unconscious Kokoa-chan to another room. Ryuto managed to get a new key, but when he returned to the room, he didn't see Kokoa-chan anywhere. Even Kokoa-chan's belongings were gone. Kokoa-chan had been taken by Kisaragi to another, nicer room without Ryuto's knowledge. Kisaragi kept getting calls from his date, but he refused to answer. He had booked the room specifically for Kokoa-chan, just for Kokoa-chan alone. But in fact, Kokoa-chan canceled their appointment and went with another man. Even so, Kisaragi still forgave her and gave Kokoa-chan a chance. But once again, Kokoa-chan refused. Kokoa-chan was really acting for Kisaragi. Kisaragi began unbuttoning Kokoa-chan's shirt one by one. Meanwhile, Ryuto was pacing back and forth, searching for Kokoa-chan. He had tried contacting her via text message, but unfortunately, there was no response. Kokoa-chan might have gone out, but if that wasn't the case, Ryuto became worried. He was worried that another strange man might have captured her. In the room, Kisaragi changed from his shirt to Kokoa-chan's pants. The girl was stripped, leaving only her underwear on. The young man was already quite upset. He wanted to teach Kokoa-chan a lesson that he wouldn't always be the one to choose. Suddenly, in the lobby, Ryuto heard a girl mention Kokoa-chan's name while seething with anger. Ryuto immediately turned to the girl to find Kokoa-chan. Kisaragi examined Kokoa-chan's exposed body before him. The young man remembered the time when they were both still in school. At that time, Kokoa-chan was so friendly to him. But it seemed that Kisaragi's position was shifted by another young man who was better than him in every way. Instantly, his memory made Kisaragi very upset, even to the point of slapping Kokoa-chan, who was still unconscious, and now the girl was conscious. Kisaragi said good morning to Kokoa-chan, who had just woken up. Kokoa-chan was shocked, especially when she found her clothes very revealing. She tried to cover her body with her hands. While Kokoa-chan felt embarrassed, Kisaragi actually felt entertained seeing Kokoa-chan's panicked expression. Kisaragi tried to reach for Kokoa-chan, but she once again pushed his hand away. Kisaragi was furious because he was rejected once again, while Kokoa-chan shouted that she would not do that with someone she did not love. Kisaragi grabbed Kokoa-chan's head and turned it to face him. Their eyes met, staring intently at each other. Kisaragi asked Kokoa-chan to fall in love with him so that he would be able to forgive her, but Kokoa-chan chose to beg to be let go. Kokoa-chan was sure that Kisaragi hated her. Kisaragi was confused by Kokoa-chan's intentions. The girl did not explain, but she said it was impossible for her to love someone who hated her. Kisaragi tries to convince Kokoa-chan that he has always loved her, but Kokoa-chan is convinced. If he truly loved her, he wouldn't have treated her like this. His behavior isn't one of love. Kisaragi feels Kokoa-chan is getting louder. He pushes her down on the bed. Kisaragi forces her to accept that he loves her, but Kokoa-chan still refuses to believe it. She wants to be let go. When his words were no longer heard, Kisaragi took out his dagger. He placed the sharp object on Kokoa-chan's cheek while telling the truth that he and Kokoa-chan were in love. Kisaragi even killed all the men around Kokoa-chan. Hearing this made Kokoa-chan very shocked until she froze. Kokoa-chan never knew. It turned out that the serial murder case that had not been solved until then was Kisaragi's work. Kisaragi was the serial killer. Kisaragi made the surface of Kokoa-chan's skin feel the coldness of the sharp dagger. Even though it didn't hurt her, but it was enough to threaten her. He once again gave Kokoa-chan a chance to be his, so that Kisaragi could forgive Kokoa-chan. But Kokoa-chan was confused. What exactly had she done to deserve Kisaragi's forgiveness? Kokoa-chan never remembered doing anything wrong to Kisaragi. One of Kokoa-chan's mistakes towards Kisaragi that caused his actions all this time was because Kokoa-chan preferred another man, Hayami, when they were still in prep school. Kisaragi felt abandoned by Kokoa-chan. Kokoa-chan tried to clear up the misunderstanding there. There was no relationship between her and Hayami. That was true. Hayami herself didn't think so. Hayami ordered Kisaragi to think more about his grades because that was their purpose of going to prep school. Kisaragi didn't want to listen. He even made Hayami his first victim, but killing the person who insulted him didn't make Kisaragi feel relieved. He believed the only way to feel relieved was to make Kokoa-chan his alone. Kokoa-chan didn't understand what Kisaragi meant and thought the man's actions were too selfish. For Kisaragi, Kokoa-chan was the same as him. Kokoa-chan's eyes widened because she felt something sharp and cold touching her sensitive area. Kokoa-chan was about to rebel, but Kisaragi warned her to be quiet or else she would get hurt. Kisaragi cut a piece of cloth covering Kokoa-chan's sensitive area, but before it was exposed, the door to the room was knocked on by someone. Kisaragi clicked his tongue in annoyance because his pleasure had been interrupted. The man turned to the door while hiding his dagger behind his back. He tried to see who came, and when the door was slightly opened, Ryuto came to force the door open. Kisaragi was surprised that Ryuto knew his position. Meanwhile, Ryuto rushed to find Kokoa-chan because he was sure the girl was there.